Hello and welcome to the Money Queen podcast. I am Alex Nicolaitis, the Money Queen. I am here to break the stigma that we don't talk about money here. I will deliver the loving bitch slaps that you need in your business to elevate you as a leader and support you through to that next level of welcoming in the wealthiest version of yourself. Backed by 14 years in the accounting and bookkeeping industry, I utilize the support of the masculine systems, structure, and ATO compliance combined with the feminine energetics of mentoring and allowing ourselves to be open to receiving and holding space for queens like yourself who are committed to forming a healthy relationship with money. So hit that subscribe button, leave me a rating, and I cannot wait to have you by my side as we raise the feminine collective and create true generational wealth and change. We have got another book review today. What book have I chosen this month? It is a classic by Robert Kiyosaki. Probably half of you listening right now are like, oh, it's Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Yeah, girlfriend. Yes, it is. Why did I choose this book? Because, as I've already said, it is a classic. It has been around since 1997. I was only 8 years old back then. And it is still... They've actually redone, I think in the last 5 years, maybe they've redone it to say like, this is what the book said 20 years ago. And here's a reflection point. And that's the version of the book that I actually have. So it's really interesting to see some of the pages and going like 20 years retrospectively, this is now what's happened, or like this is still relevant 20 years on. Quite interesting. And, you know, it just proves that it is a classic and it serves the test of time. So why I love this book, it is easy to read, it's relatable for me, given that there is a polarity in how I grew up and the money mindsets of my mother and father. So my father essentially was the rich dad and my mother was the poor dad. So dad grew up in, you know, an expansive way of, you know, we always have money available to us. He immigrated from Egypt to Australia. They left everything in Egypt and, you know, regenerated everything in Australia. So there was, you know, periods of scarcity there, but ultimately the expansive and wealth mindset actually overran that, and they were able to sort of build back up their wealth in Australia because of that underlying growth mindset. And then my mother, contradictory to that, you know, grew up in scarcity and, you know, staying poor makes you more pure along those lines. In alignment with the book's essence, or ethos rather, and the poor dad mentality, she also is a librarian. She wanted to be a teacher, and, you know, education is highly rated for her. She's very studious, loves books, obviously being a librarian, but that was her way of succeeding in world, to be, you know, smart and be educated. That's the only way to succeed, and being in that employee mindset. And whereas my dad was always like, live your life. Like if there's opportunities, great, go and seize the day. I remember when I got my first tattoo when I was like, I think 16 at the age. He ended up finding it, and he was like, it's your body. Like, it's, you know, if you regret it later on in life, it's your body, it's your choices. Whereas mum was like, oh my God, this is outrageous, rah, 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 because it didn't align with like, you do this and you do that and you do this, you go to school, you go to HSC, you go to university, you get a job, and that's where your life ends up. So for me, relating to this book was very relevant to go, oh, dad would always do that. Oh yeah, that sounds like mum. So that's why I like it. And the version of the book that I have of the 20-year rerun also has a summary at the end of every chapter. So that adds to the easy readability of it, to go, what did I just read? If you sometimes, I don't know how you read, but sometimes when I read, I like skip a few lines. So it's nice to have the summary at the end to go, oh, I missed that. I actually want to go back and reread that with more intention, more presence, to actually absorb that. Because a saying that I always say is, you know, especially around New Year's resolutions times, it's all great and good and, you know, fancy to say, I want to read 24 books this year. I want to read 12 books this year, one every month. But what actual impact is that making in your life? Are you reading for the sake of reading to check a box, to prove to someone that you can read 24 books in a year? Or are you actually reading to make impact in your world or in the lives of your clients, and to actually shift something in your reality? Like, because that to me is the purpose of reading a book, to become educated, to be challenged, to change something in your life. So if you are just reading for the sake of reading to check a box, to tick your ego cup for the day, what's the fucking point? Anywho, trying to keep these episodes to 20 minutes. It's hard when I start talking like that, isn't it? I make no apologies. So I've picked out 3 themes from this book. There are many chapters in here, but I have picked out them, and I'm telling you which chapters I've picked out and why. So let's start. Lesson number 1. They don't call them chapters, actually. They call them lessons. So lesson number 1 is people believe that money can eliminate the fear of being poor. So they create a lot of it, right? Only to find the fear gets worse. And now they actually fear losing the money. So what this is trying to teach us is like the fear of not having enough money, and then, you know, is where people start. So then they create lots of money. They do what they need to, you know, work hard, essentially, in inverted commas, to create the money that they think they desire. And then once they're actually at that place of going, I'm on, you know, a salary of say $200,000, or my business has a net profit of $200,000. Oh my God, I'm rich. I can do anything that I want right now. Then the fear of not having enough quickly turns to going, shit, this is a life I've now created for myself, and I now have a fear of losing it all. And I speak about this quite often in my episodes of like keeping up with the Joneses. And, you know, that is the lived out experience of this mentality of going, I've created this expectation of myself, and my friends and family and community also have this expectation of myself of this is the standard of living. And so then it's like, I can never go backwards. And you can actually use that belief as a driving force, as a positive tool to move forward and to stay at that level or continue to grow. Or depending on your relationship to fear, it can actually allow you to go backwards, to go, shit, like I'm actually, you know, may have a lot of money, but I'm still operating from scarcity of going, I don't ever want to go back there. I'm so scared right now of losing all the money that I'm just going to continue to work harder because that's all I know. That's how I got here. And that's what I need to do to stay here, as opposed to shifting your mindset and going, actually, that's how I got here. And that's not how I'm going to go to the next level. So what can I actually do to work smarter and not harder right now? And those beliefs that got me to here and working hard is the only option, great. They've served a purpose. And right now, for where I'm at, to either stay or continue moving forward, I actually get to level up. I get to challenge that, and I get to be exposed to different people, to different beliefs and different ways of living that can actually be better and more expansive and more wealth creative, if that makes sense. So he goes on to say that friends of mine who have millions are more afraid now than when they were poor because they're terrified of losing it all. They're terrified of what that will mean about them because they've lived in the stage of not having a lot of money. They've then generated it all. And then it's like, who am I? It's like my car example of last week's episode when I was challenged of who are you without the Audi? I was like, shit, who am I without the Audi? Right? Or who am I without having a convertible? What does that mean about me? Having those layers stripped off and having that ego checked in and fucked off, to be honest, to go, I'm not my car. Like, have a bit of a reality check. I am so much more than this fucking piece of metal. That's not me at all. That's an element of my life, but that's not me. So in this lesson, he goes on to say, I want to teach you to master the power of money instead of being afraid of it. So if any of that resonated with you, go and get this book. Or if you already have it already, which probably half of you already do, go and reread lesson number 1. Lesson number 2 is the second lesson that I've picked out from this book to share with you today. And it is a favorite of mine, why learn financial literacy? That is something that I teach all of my clients because it's so underrated in the financial space, in anyone who has a business. And it's one of my missions to get women in business to increase their financial literacy, to be able to actually read their financial reports and make educated business decisions based on that data, that information, because it's there to elevate you and drive your business to the next level. So, as you can tell, I'm very passionate about this. He goes on to say, it's not how much money you make, it's actually how much money you keep. And this is something that gives me the fucking shits, to be honest, because I see all over social media people, influencers, in inverted commas, being like, oh, I've got $1 million business and I've got, revenue of $200,000 this month and it's amazing. Great. I love that, queen. Talk to me about your net profit, because that's actually where it's at. You can have all of the revenue in the world, and you can also have all of the expenses in the world, which actually leaves you with a net profit of not very much if you're not a very smart operator, or if your business is actually struggling right now. I have some clients who are in that sort of 5 to 10 million revenue stage. And I also have some clients who are in that sort of about 10K a month, so about 120 grand per year. And more often than not, the net profit of the smaller businesses, when you look at the percentage of their revenue, how much money they're actually keeping, is higher than the clients that I have that are in that $5 to $10 million range. So what's your choice? What type of business do you want to have, right? What type of life do you want to have, more importantly? Because it's not about how much money you make, it's about how much money you keep. So that's why it's important to know your numbers. It's great that you know your revenue numbers, what sales you're making, what money is coming into your bank account, but it's actually more important, more impactful for your business to know how much money you're actually keeping, i.e. net profit. So he says, foundations are everything, and building an empire state building on a concrete slab meant for the suburbs, it's just not going to work long term. And this is a phrase that I repeat often and I'm sure I've said it in previous podcast episodes, and that's why it's so important to me to increase the financial literacy of female business owners, because they're trying to build an empire state building based off suburbia concrete slab of like 4 millimeters thick or 4 inches thick, however thick they are, and wanting to build empires, but it just doesn't work. Once you get to the first level, that's probably fine. Once you get to the second level, there's probably going to be a few cracks. Once you get to the fourth, fifth, and sixth levels, that concrete slab is not supporting shit. And that's where people fall down and fall from grace and go, what happened? Your foundations weren't there to support a massive corporation. But what happens, what I invite you to build right now, depending on wherever you are at in business, is to look at your foundations. Do I have the right support in my business, my team around me, in finances, in systems, in processes? Do I have everything in place so that I can actually grow this business? If your aim is to build it as big as you can, what are my foundations actually saying right now? And if I was to double my sales tomorrow, would the foundations of my business actually hold that? If the answer to that is no, then you've got some legwork to do. There's going to be so many favorites in here because he often speaks to, the technical accounting stuff, which is my background, and then also the mindset work as well, to go, what's your relationship with your accounting knowledge and your actual financial literacy? So another reason why I love this, it's pretty much what I do in bringing the data and the accounting and the bookkeeping in with the mindset to actually mesh the two, to have the yin and the yang, the masculine and the feminine. Yes, that's a full embodied program for me, or educational system for me. So this book is an educational institution, I reckon. Yeah, let's do it. So the next thing that he goes on to say in this lesson 2 is knowing the difference between an asset and a liability, right? An asset puts money in your pocket, whereas a liability takes that money out. A person can be highly educated, professionally successful, yet still be financially illiterate. And using that previous example of the asset versus liability is people putting money into liabilities that they think are assets. An example of this is a car. People who spend, $200,000 plus on a car, when they don't actually have the money for that, they're actually scraping to make the repayments, and it's not in their, livable lifestyle. They're living outside of their means. It's like, where could that money actually be best spent to actually increase its value? If you're buying a luxury car, or if you're buying a vintage car, for instance, they may actually appreciate in value. So good on you. But 9 times out of 10, if you are buying a new car, it's going to depreciate in value. So what's your strategy when you go into that? Because for me, I actually if you listen to my last episode, I did buy a new car, and I had to check in with myself about this to go, why am I putting my money into this asset, but actually it's a liability, right? Checking in my own financial literacy. And it's like, actually, it's the intention behind it is to evolve my persona, to allow me to actually evolve my world and to step into the wealthiest version of myself. And I am financially stable enough to support those payments. So it's like, it's not outside of my means. It is an intentional choice. And therefore I've chosen it. And I know that it is a liability in a, purely financial perspective. But for my whole life, when I'm looking at it, it is an asset for me. Other situations where you can look at things like this is buying a home, for instance. You can spend $500,000 on a home to live in and accept the capital growth on that home, or you can put $500,000 into an investment property that's, say, a duplex, get 2 lots of revenue streams per week from the 2 people that you rented off, and then actually use that passive income to then pay your rent of the home that you choose to live in, right? That's actually a smarter option than buying a home and, tying up $500,000 of capital or of borrowing capacity. I challenge you to look at the assets and liabilities in your life and go, why did I choose that? And as long as there's an intentional choice behind it, an intentional educated choice behind that, then that's okay. But if you're like, oh, I just did it because that's what you're meant to do, that's where you get to challenge yourself. And that's where you get to reframe and make a different choice. I've got a question for you. Do you want your 2024 to look exactly the same as this current year? Or are you ready for some sassy wake-up calls around your money world and a fire to be lit under your eyes? Introducing the Money Queen Coaching Package, a 6-week journey which has already been a key pivotal experience for queens just like you to shift their relationship with money. Get a personalized sacred money archetype reading, which is pretty much like a human design, but for your money world, filled with aha moments and 2 tailored 90-minute sessions to reset your money mindset and unleash your magnetic power. Click the link in the show notes to claim your throne, Queen. The last lesson that I picked out specifically for your ears today to listen to this is lesson number 6. It goes on to say, work to learn, don't work for money. So an example with this, and I think I said this in a previous episode just recently, is McDonald's. Who can cook a better burger than them? Pretty much everyone listening, right? I know that I can. So then why are you not wealthy as Ronald McDonald? Or whoever owns it, right? McDonald's is focusing on the business systems and an okay, reliable, consistent burger, as opposed to making the best burger in the world. So here I am in my kitchen trying to make the best burger possible and not making any sales whatsoever. I don't have a business because I'm over here in my kitchen perfecting this burger. Whereas McDonald's is over here across the road making an average, reliable, okay burger with lots of systems and processes behind it so that anyone that is over the age of 14 can go in and make that damn burger and serve the customers. They're generating revenue. They've got a good net profit because they're actually doing something. It's not the best, but it's reliable. And that's what makes the difference. So coming back to the essence of this, lesson 6, is work to learn and not work for money, right? So where are you? Because I actually started out at McDonald's when I was 14 and 9 months. And that experience for me, it wasn't about the money. It was about what skills can I learn at this job that will see me succeed later on. If you know my story, you know that I left school 6 weeks into year 11 and didn't do my HSC. I went and worked at McDonald's full time. Again, it wasn't about the money. It was about I didn't want to be at school because I didn't see value in staying there an extra 2 years, learning subjects that I wasn't interested in. I wanted to learn about commerce and about business. And I only had one subject out of like 6 that was about that. So I'm like, that doesn't make any sense to me. So I went and worked at McDonald's and learnt life lessons. I learnt business lessons whilst I was there. So I went there to learn, not to work. It wasn't about the money. It was about the lessons that I was making. It was about the choices and the person that I was becoming. And as opposed to staying at school and doing, quite frankly, what my mother wanted me to do. And in order for me to leave school, I needed to have a challenging conversation with her and my dad, but mostly her because she was the studious one, to go, I don't want to be here anymore. I don't want to do what you want me to do. And it's me stepping into my person, my life, and going, actually, it is my life, and this is what I want to do with it. It's not what you want me to do, but sorry, not sorry at all. My choices. And I get to make these. So talented people are poor because they focus on making the best burger, but know little about business systems. He then goes to explain that skills missing in talented poor people is the ability to sell, because perfectionism is preventing them from taking action. So in my example, I'm over here making the perfect burger that I don't know how to sell, but I'm like, I need to make this perfect burger before I can go out to market. And then even when I go out to market, I'm like, shit, I don't know how to sell this thing. Whereas you've got McDonald's over here, a massive corporation doing okay at doing an okay burger, great sales because they're consistent and reliable. It's pretty fucking easy recipe, or recipe, business recipe, and also recipe. But because they've got the systems and processes behind it, again, someone who's 14 years old can go in there and make a reliable burger. The last noteworthy point that comes from lesson 6 is the main management skills needed for success are management of cash flow, management of systems, and management of people. If you do not have those management skills in those 3 different areas, there is simply a shortfall. And coming back to the Empire State Building, there's going to be a crack there. So review your knowledge, expertise, your support, because you don't need to do everything. Having management of these 3 items, cash flow, systems, and people, does not mean that you need to solely know everything about all of these 3 items. As long as you have the team around you to support your business in these 3 areas, and you are you have delegated to them as opposed to abdicated, which is one of in my previous episodes. I can't remember which one. Just go back and listen to them all. You're welcome. Then that essentially means that you are delegating and still keeping your finger in that pot, but someone else is doing most of the heavy work and coming back and reporting to you, and you are still leading your business but not doing everything. You are being the leader, not doing the doing. There are a few loving bitch slaps in this book as well. If you can't tell, I love books with loving bitch slaps in them. So I'm just going to rattle these off to leave you with some juicy slaps in a final ditch effort to go and read that book again, or go and buy that book if you haven't already and sink your teeth into it. The first one, I've picked 4. First one is Doubt is Expensive. Burger example. You're welcome. The second one is being busy is the most common form of laziness. Laziness by staying busy is avoidance of what's actually really important. And number 3 is swap I can't afford that with how can I afford that, and actually open yourself up to the possibility of extra, the possibility of abundance. The 4th and final loving bitch slap from this book is pay yourself first. I could do an entire episode on this. Creditors will scream a lot louder than you will. So it creates a positive pressure in your world, in your business, to actually move that needle forward. I am going to do an episode on that. I've just decided. So stay tuned for that, maybe next month. You're welcome. Go and listen to that book if you have Audible, or go and read it so that you can highlight it. Me personally, for the amount of nuggets of gold that I got out of this book, it is a buy so that you can highlight what really resonated with you. Happy money stories. Mwah. Thank you, Queen, for saying yes to your yes in listening to this episode and being a part of raising the feminine collective one conversation at a time. Remember to share this episode with your business besties and join me in breaking the tabooness around having money conversations. As always, if you have enjoyed this episode, please rate, subscribe, and share this on your social media, remembering to tag me in it to help this conversation go further, which creates a bigger ripple effect.